Cellcast is recorded in front of a live streaming audience.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cellcast. Joining me today is a man who, well, he likes to whistle while he works. Mostly because that's the best way he can carry a tune. Welcome, Jacob.
Jeez.
I'll pay for that later.
Yes. Revenge is mine. Ouch, that hurt.
I'm just jacking with you.
Of course. Why, thank you. Let me introduce our co-host, a man who got back to his house and realized there's a fair maiden in his bed. And he's perplexed what's going on. Welcome, Drew.
So yeah, now I'm a little worried because I am a Christian single male.
Right. You got a lot of
and apparently there's a woman on my bed. I'm going, something about this isn't right. I'm gonna get in trouble. I don't know who this woman is. Thank goodness this is fictional.
Thank you. We're here all night.
All right. So yeah, tonight we're gonna be reviewing the very first full-length featured animated movie, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I had not seen it before this viewing. How much of an animation nerd have I just shown I'm not? That I had never watched the original full-length motion picture. The movie that built Disney.
Yes.
Literally.
That literally started an empire.
It allowed them to actually build their animation studio.
Yes.
I don't know where they were animating this before this point, but
Not at the animation studio they built later.
no, because literally the dwarves are holding up the pillars.
Yeah.
At the Walt Disney Animation Studio.
Yes.
You don't believe me? Go check out the last episode of She-Hulk, where she breaks the fourth wall and walks through the Disney lot, walking right past the Seven Dwarfs to go talk to Kevin.
Oh my gosh.
I have other issues with that thing.
I have heard of this episode. I have not seen it.
It's garbage.
That's what I hear.
Because here's the thing. I love fourth wall breaks.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. This was not a good fourth wall break. Because it's sort of like, oh, all this stuff that is obviously, they're referencing like the fact that, oh, we don't know when the X-Men are showing up. Why is all this weird stuff going on? That's all the stuff that we are asking in the middle of things, not what might be a general thought process for someone watching this, going through this stuff later.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that's, anyway.
Yeah.
Annoying stuff. I'm just half surprised they didn't mention anything about Fox.
That is so. Just before we get started, be like, I do have a slight head cold, so I might sneeze or cough, and my temperature's gonna be a little lower tonight. So apologies in advance.
Yeah, you could do those movie trailer announcements. In a world ripped apart by war, one man. I don't know.
Knowing me, I would take probably like 40 takes because I'll blow the line like every time. It's like, wait, how do you say cat?
Cat. You're in Ace, Texas, so you gotta hold the A out about 5 syllables. Cat.
Catawawawa.
Anywho, you ready to jump into our spoiler-free section?
Yes.
Certified fresh and spoiler-free.
So yeah, like I said, this was my first this is the first time I know I've watched the whole movie. And I have to say it that way because every single person who has listened to this show knows that one of my fake curse words is Jiminy Crickets. And I thought all this time, since I started saying that I stole this from Pinocchio with the thought, since I don't want to take the Lord's name in vain, there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking Jiminy Cricket's name in vain. Right?
Right.
I thought I was doing good. How was I supposed to know that just 8 years, no, not 8 years, what, 4 years?
4 years.
4 years prior to Pinocchio coming out that they were already saying taking Jiminy Cricket's name in vain in this film.
Thanks, Grumpy.
I had to have seen parts of this, I'm guessing, when I was a kid, and those parts seeped into my brain. Otherwise, that's too big a coincidence.
Yes.
And I don't believe in coincidence. Providence, but not coincidence.
Right.
And I doubt this was a providential thing. Anyway, so I know I knew the story, of course, because everyone knows the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, or at least the bare bones of it.
Rock for the last 80 years.
And plus, of course, I have played the 3 Kingdom Hearts levels that's based on this movie.
Of course.
Yeah, 3. I had to stop and think, because there was Birth by Sleep. There was that thing in Unchained Key that you saw. You came over while I was finishing it up one night.
Yes.
On Untangling Kingdom Hearts. I will get back to this eventually. I do have another script written. I just need to record it. And there is the 5 seconds you're in the messed up version of it in Kingdom Hearts 0.2 Birth by Sleep, a fragmentary passage. I could not think of the whole name of that stupid game. Anyway, so yes, I was aware of the story. I had never actually watched any of the full animation. I've got opinions.
Yeah.
But we'll get there when we get there.
Exactly.
I still think that if you are an animation nerd of any kind, definitely watch this so you can get an appreciation for the very first. You watch this like you watch Toy Story. It's the first movie of its kind.
Yes.
So, yes. Also, fun fact, do you know what else Snow White is famous for?
No. What?
Being the inspiration for the art style in Astro Boy.
Of course.
Making this movie the fairy godmother of anime.
Yes.
In a sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my mom is in the chat and she says, yes, you have seen this movie all the way through many times. Well, unfortunately, I didn't remember this.
There you go, Miss Dodgett.
Thank you.
Put him in his place.
So apparently I have watched Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs all the way through. I just don't remember it.
Oh, that's
I have much more memories of it being on that DTV Valentine's Day special I also wore into the ground. That is where I picked up the cricket.
Yes.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Dodgen.
Oh.
Oh, I
This is
love
horribly ironic for me to say, but Jiminy Crickets. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes, this show's awesome.
I knew it would be when I realized, oh, that's where Jiminy Crickets came from, and I don't remember this. In my defense, this is probably also around the time I wore down that copy of that bootleg copy of Lady and the Tramp into the ground. So there's a lot of those, like in Charlotte's Web, same time.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of these. It's like I know I watched, but I don't remember watching it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and plus now I'm looking at it with a more critical eye.
Right.
So I will have I do have opinions.
Yes.
Going forward. So before I embarrass myself even more, I don't know what she right now. She says, yep. Anyway,
your mother.
Jacob, what are your spoiler-free thoughts?
My spoiler-free thoughts is, again, thank you, Miss Dodgen. Yes, thank you very much. Awesome. So I remember watching this movie as a very young lad. I didn't particularly like it because there again, I was a very small child and didn't appreciate it whatsoever.
It is a Disney princess film, and you're a guy. There's a little bit of diametrically opposedness to that.
That is true. Minus the dwarfs were cool.
Well, yeah,
the dwarfs were cool, obviously. So I remember watching it when I was a very younger child. My mom, obviously, she bought us all the VHS clamshell,
the white boxes,
and that was fun. And I had not seen this movie for decades until a couple of years ago when I got it part of Disney Movie Club.
Right.
So I got it and I watched it. And I'm like, huh. Be like, I remember this film very well. Now, granted, I always got it mixed up with
Cinderella.
Cinderella. I always got it mixed up with Cinderella.
That is understandable, as they're similar stories.
They are similar stories.
Throw in
Minus
Sleeping
Cinderella
Beauty
was a
with
lot
the
more
same
fun.
thing. Well, true.
That's true.
I do remember Cinderella. Mama.
Yeah.
We don't have to go down that road.
No, we don't. But minus, I think, have we reviewed Cinderella yet?
We have. That's the reason I went and put Snow White on. Is, do you know what Disney princess films we've actually reviewed? Total?
Let's see. Most of the modern ones.
Frozen.
Yes.
Tangled. Mulan.
Mulan. Yes.
Aladdin technically counts as Princess Jasmine.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's it.
That's it. That's
the only 4 we've done. We
That
had
is
not
true.
got the classics. So
That
that's
is
why
true.
I put Snow White on the list for the 5th one, because
that makes sense.
we have reviewed a movie with Snow White in it already.
Yes, we have.
And every other Disney princess.
That is true. That was a fun scene. Not a very fun film.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you want to go listen to our review of Ralph
Breaks the Internet, go check that out.
wherever you listen to your favorite.
But
podcast.
yeah. That's why I put it on the list. Is like, A, it's the very first full-length animated feature ever made.
of course.
B, we haven't done the classic Disney princess films.
Oh, thank you. We have done Little Mermaid.
Yes, Little Mermaid. That's another
you.
film I wore out.
I loved the Little Mermaid as a kid. But
Fair.
this movie, I appreciate this film so much for what it was and what it did for the industry, what it did for animation, what it did to inspire other artists to become animators. And anyways,
Mama's reminding us that on that episode we had trouble talking about her shells because we're
yes,
straight men.
yes. I remember.
Anyway,
Thank you, Miss Dodgen. But yeah, I'd be like, I appreciate this film so much for what it is, for what it does. It is a masterpiece in itself. To say this movie is terrible or just it's not worth watching is almost uncanny for someone to say.
oh yeah,
I do have issues with the film, but overall, it is a fantastic film. It's revolutionary in every aspect of this film, everything, because it started everything.
exactly.
But overall, I enjoy this film, and yeah, can't wait to get into just reviewing it.
Well, why don't we just go ahead and do that?
Exactly. Let's do that.
The following is a spoiler-filled review for the movie Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Listener discretion is advised. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was directed by William Cottrell, David Hand, Wilfred Jackson, Larry Morey, Percy Pierce,
There you go.
and Ben Sharpstein. I am not saying what else they directed because that's way too many directors. And I'm guaranteeing you some of those are more animation directors and not
Yes.
literal director of. Actually, I would bet none of these are the director of the whole thing. I bet they all directed segments of the
Possibly.
movie. Because
Possibly.
I will say before I get farther into this does feel like a series of silly symphonies.
In some way.
In some ways.
In some ways.
But admittedly, that's what they and all these people in animated before. So
Right.
also, it was written by Ted Sears, Richard Creedon, Otto Englander, Dick Rickard, Earl Hurd, Merrill D. Maris, Dorothy Ann Blank, and Webb Smith, and based on the classic fairy tale by the Brothers Grimm.
Mhm.
Getting into the cast, we've got Adriana Cosolotti. Cosolotti? It's Italian.
Mhm.
That's all I can tell. She voiced Snow White. And did you know she's in The Wizard of Oz?
No, I didn't know that.
She played a character named Juliet, but she is uncredited over there.
Huh.
But that's her only other singing role besides Snow White.
Well, that makes sense. Definitely.
I now get more into that in the trivia.
Yeah. It was the 1930s.
Yes. Also, we got Roy Atwell voicing Doc. And in something called Behind the Mic, he played a guy named Vale. And by the way, as I'm going through what else they'd been in, all this stuff, of course, is going to be from the 30s. I don't know what any of it is, except for in a very few instances.
Yes.
So I'm going to just assume these were their major roles. A lot of times I pulled from, the what they're famous for on IMDb, just
Yes.
giving y'all a heads up. Eddie Collins, believe it or not, was the voice of Dopey.
Eddie Collins. That even sounds really familiar.
I didn't see anything that really stood out for him.
Oh, okay.
I'll get to them in. But along with playing Dopey, bear in mind, a guy who doesn't talk.
Mm-hmm.
He also was the Chipmunks and the Squirrel Sneezes.
Oh, okay.
And in a old movie called Charlie Chan in Honolulu, he played Al Hogan. Pinto Colvig was the voice of Sleepy, Grumpy, and Dopey's hiccups. I want to point out something here.
Okay.
The character who does not ever speak, because, and I quote, we don't know if he knows how to speak, he's never tried, has 2 voice actors. I would love to, I need to go back and figure out where Dopey actually made noises besides the hiccups.
Well, he does scream. He does scream at when he realized he thinks that Snow White's a ghost.
Oh, okay, yeah, I can see that.
He screams and barrels down the stairway.
So anyway, this Pinto Colvig, the voice of Grumpy and Sneezy and Dopey, he is the earliest Goofy voice. Earliest voice for Goofy. Gorgeous G Goof.
Gorgeous G Goof.
That's his name.
Really?
That's his full name.
I didn't know that. You learn something every day.
You know what the middle G is?
Goofy?
Yeah. So it's Gorgeous Goofy Goof.
Clever, Disney. Clever.
Billy Gilbert was the voice of Sneezy. And he played a character of Herring in the classic Charlie Chaplin film, The Great Dictator.
Oh.
The one where Charlie Chaplin played Hitler.
Oh.
To make fun of Hitler before we entered World War II.
Yes.
Otis Harlan was the voice of Happy. And he played Mr. Mole in Bambi. Or he would go on to play Mr. Mole in Bambi, I should say. Scotty Metraw was the voice of Bashful, and he was a migrant in The Grapes of Wrath. Stuart Buchanan was the voice of the Huntsman, and he played a carnival barker in Pinocchio. He's one of the people who were turning kids into donkeys.
Oh, okay. What are those people?
Bad. You have to use donkey because the real word he was turning them into, we cannot say on a family-friendly podcast.
You're welcome.
Anyway, Maroney Olson played the Magic Mirror, and in The Three Musketeers from 1935, he played Porthos. And Lucille Laverne was the voice of the Queen and the Witch. And in 1935's A Tale of Two Cities, she played a character called The Vengeance. I want to know. I got to go check that out because I want to see what character is called The Vengeance, because that sounds like a Power Rangers villain.
Yes, it does.
Anyway, Kingdom Hearts connections. Take a guess.
1.
Absolutely, positively nothing. Outside of the fact that all the characters show up in Kingdom Hearts.
Well, that makes sense. It was a movie made in 1937, and a game that only
and all of the voice actors are dead now because they're all too old. And that's the other thing I didn't mention. Every other film that we've done from this era, like Pinocchio, when we did it, they were all doing stuff all the way up into like the 50s, 60s, 70s, right? Nearly every single one of these people stopped acting by 1940-ish. Some went to 45. There was 1 or 2 that was 50, but most of them stopped pretty much at the start of World War II.
Really?
Is an interesting little
that is interesting
thing. But anyway, what do we got in info and stuff?
So it has an IMDb of 5.2 out of 10.
What?
Yeah. IMDb has a 5.2 out of 10 for Snow White and the freaking Seven Dwarfs. What is wrong with you people?
Are you sure you're not pulling a pauljpowers.com and reading like a different Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, possibly starring Kristen Stewart?
Let me check.
Because that just sounds weird. Okay, this is one of the
agree.
classics.
I agree with you. I agree with it. It's kind of bizarre. It's like, why in the world would such a classic film like that have a low score?
I mean, I guess maybe if you're looking back on it, it may not be as impressive because it was the first time we saw so many things that become normal after this point.
Right.
So maybe it's not as impressive as maybe some other things, but still.
It is weird. I agree with you.
Okay, I'm seeing on IMDb. I'm seeing a IMDb rating of 7.6 out of 10, which is a little better.
Yeah. Now I may be like, I looked this up. It's on Google. What? It changed.
Okay, that happens.
It
sometimes.
does. I agree.
I don't know how it changed that much overnight.
Okay, so
but
it does have.
I'll give that one to you.
Okay, so
7.6 is a lot more understandable.
Yeah, a lot more better than a 7.2. This is like, okay, that's a little weird. But anyways,
I mean, at that point, you reach the point of critically, it's probably pretty good. At that point, we're just dealing with preference.
Yeah. All right, so we think you can watch it obviously on Disney Plus. It's produced by Walt Disney Productions. Distributed was not by Buena Vista.
No.
It was by RKO Radio Pictures, which has now been all of its titles been absorbed into.
Well, hang on, because RKO Pictures still exists.
Yes,
it is mostly a rights holding company at this point.
Exactly,
because all of its films, even though they are distributed by other companies now, primarily Warner Brothers, due to the RKO library being sold to Ted Turner back in the 80s, and then he crammed it all into Warner Brothers when that got absorbed with Time Warner, which includes, of course, King Kong. Even though Universal thought they had it for a long time. Anyway, if you want to know more about that strange copyright information, don't go listen to any show we've done. Go listen to Nate Marchand's episode on the King Kong movies. He went into that. I think it's like the first three. He goes into like that entire history of all that.
Oh, Monster Island Film Ball?
Yeah, Monster Island Film Ball.
Yeah, go show that show some love.
Yeah. He goes into it much better, but the fun fact is, well, we're not going to get into that. But yeah, RKO was the distributor of the Walt Disney shorts and films after Universal kind of made Walt Disney mad by stealing Oswald the Lucky Rabbit.
Thanks, Universal.
Just putting that out there.
Yes. Release date was where do you think it was originally released?
1937.
Okay. Where? What theater?
Grumman's Chinese Theater, except it wasn't called Grumman's at the time. I don't know who the owner was.
No, it wasn't Grumman's.
I assumed it was at the Chinese Theater.
No, because it was the Carthay Circle Theater.
Okay.
Yeah, this was a very famous theater back in the 1930s.
It makes sense. It'd be in one of the big ones in Hollywood.
Yeah, it was huge. It was
LA.
Huge. It was actually in Burbank.
Well, that's where Disney is. So yeah.
Yeah, so this was a theater that be like you saw everything at this theater. And now it is part of a 2-story complex in a parking lot.
Shame.
Yes.
But anyways,
so it was released nationwide on February 4th, 2000. That's a millennial later, Jacob. February 4th, 1938. So a whole year later.
Yeah.
Or almost a full year later. Almost. No, I will take that back a couple of months. Or I'm not even reading this right. Blah.
It was released within the next year.
Yeah, it was like 2 months later. 2 months later. I'm sorry.
2 months
later. So let's see. Box office. Now, granted, this is like fully estimated. It had an animated budget that was estimated at $1.4 million,
which was a ton of money in 1937.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, we were coming out of the Great Depression at the time.
Very true. And even so,
the only reason movies were making money is because everyone had nothing to do except this was the highlight of their week was to go watch a movie at the theater.
Exactly. Like even to the point where the movie, like they were running out of money.
Yeah.
They're running out of money to do this film. And they told Walt, be like, just screen it to the bankers. Just screen it. Let them watch it. And sure enough, they watched it. They loved it. They gave him more money. So let's see here. The opening weekend for United States and Canada was 6.017. Yeah, it made $6 million.
Yeah.
I think it's inflated. I think it's been I can't talk tonight. This is terrible.
You're saying that number is affected by inflation?
Possibly.
Okay.
Possibly. Let's see. The blah 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 blah. U.S. gross in Canada was $134.9 million, and that's the world gross. Now, granted, this is probably all combined with its re-releases into theaters.
Yeah, because that is one of the things, is that this movie was re-released right before World War II, so that Disney could make some more money to get through the war years before they really cut back on their budgets and made 4 films that were shorts with musical numbers. Of course, one of those was Fantasia. So what are we talking about here?
All right. So here's a question. When do you think Snow White and Seven Dwarfs was finally released on home video?
Well, it could not have been released on home video at least until around the 1970s at its earliest, because we didn't have home video till then.
That is true. We did.
So there is that.
True.
That being said, while I do suspect this might be one of the first ones released on home video, knowing how Disney feels with the Disney vaults back in the day, I can also see this one taking a good long while to actually get released on VHS. VHS was the early 80s, I believe, specifically, because we had Betamax before that, and Betamax.
It's about the mid.
All that stuff was super expensive at the time.
Yes.
So I'm guessing 1984.
Close. 1994.
1994.
Yeah.
Okay. By that time, I'd probably already worn out a VHS tape recorded off Disney Channel. From what I've learned tonight,
yes,
that is most likely what happened, because I can almost guarantee you at the age of 9, I probably wasn't watching this film again. Okay. Because I know my watching habits from that time period. By then, Darkwing Duck was taking up my world.
Yeah. So just to clarify something earlier, when I'm talking about the box office,
actually long after that, but anyway,
these numbers are being based off the release back in 1983.
Okay.
So yes,
and it had been released a ton of times, because that was that was actually how Disney
every 7 years they released.
That's how all these movies stayed in the
zeitgeist,
the cultural memory of us, is because they were always being re-released every couple years, and all the Disney movies made money because they were Disney movies. You knew they were going to be good.
And then the vault happened.
Well, the vault kind of is a natural growth out of that, because Disney wanted to make sure that all their movies were special.
That is true.
I think they realized early on that what do they call that? FAMO or FOMO. FOMO, fear of missing out. I think they realized that was a thing.
Yeah.
So they realized we could make a ton of money if we make limited releases, and then don't release it again for 7 years.
Yes. All right. So on
or till the next home video format comes out.
That is true. So on October 28th, 1994, the film was released for the first time on home video on VHS and Laserdisc as the first release of Walt Disney Masterpiece Collection. The Laserdisc contained the film along with several bonus tracks, bonus materials such as the making of documentary, an archival interview with the one and only Walt Disney, and deleted scenes. In 1995, the film had sold $24 million home video units, grossing over $430 million. As of 2002, the film has sold $21.1 million in home video units in the United States alone. Snow White and Seven Dwarfs was released on DVD for the first time in October 9th, 2001. The first in the Disney's Platinum Edition features across 2 discs, a digital restoration of the film, making a documentary, and much more, which has been rehashed and reburned through different ones. Let's see, a VHS released in I think the final VHS was released in 2001. Both versions returned to the vault in 2002. As of 2001, the film grossed over $1.1 million in the box office and home video revenue. Snow White and Seven Dwarfs was released on Blu-ray for the first time on October 6, 2009. The first of the Disney's Diamond Edition and a new DVD edition, which was released on November 24, 2009. The Blu-ray included a high definition version of the film, sourced from new restoration of the film, a DVD copy of the film, several bonus features, which were not included in the 2001 DVD release. The set returned to the Disney Vault on April 30th, 2011. Walt Disney Studio Home Entertainment re-released Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs on Blu-ray and DVD on February 2nd, 2016 as the first of the Walt Disney Signature Collection line. It was released on digital HD on January 19th, 2016 with bonus materials. Now, there was a scheduled sequel.
And it never happened.
In the early 2000s, Disney Toon Studios began developing a computer animated prequel to Snow White and Seven Dwarfs titled The Seven Dwarfs. Directors Mike Dysa and screenwriter Evan, I'm going to butcher this name, so I apologize, Spiltopoulos, I believe. I'm probably butchering. My apologies. Pitched a story explaining how the dwarves met and how the evil queen killed Snow White's father and took the throne. According to Dysa, Toon Disney management changed the sequel plot to center around how Dopey lost his voice upon witnessing the death of his mother, which sounds a worse idea. Let's just being honest. After Disney purchased Pixar in 2006, John Lasseter, Disney Toon's new chief operator, canceled the Seven Dwarfs. So that is all I have for info and stuff.
So there was one interesting thing you didn't mention, that 1994 version for VHS. Do you know why Disney finally gave in and made a home video release of it?
Why is that?
Because in Italy at the time, the film was almost in public domain.
Really?
And they knew it was going to be in trouble for piracy, so they went ahead and tried to get ahead of the pirates and release a good high quality version of the film where people could see it. But ultimately, they got, of course, the copyright laws extended.
Of course.
Fun fact: at the end of this year, the very first Mickey Mouse cartoon goes public domain. That'll be interesting to see what happens there, because I just don't think Disney at this point is trying to keep that from happening anymore.
And plus, we'll probably get another horror film out of it.
Steamboat Willie.
Oh boy!
You see Mickey Mouse stabbing Pete through the heart.
Oh my gosh!
with the steering wheel of the boat. Anyway, let's get into the actual summary of the film. Having lost both her parents at a young age, Snow White is a princess living with her wicked and cold-hearted stepmother, the Queen. Fearing that Snow White's beauty will outshine her own, the Queen forces her to work as a scullery maid and asks her magic mirror daily who is the fairest one of all. For years, the mirror always answers that the Queen is, pleasing her. One day, the magic mirror informs the Queen that Snow White is now the fairest in all the land. On the same day, Snow White meets and falls in love with a prince who overhears her singing. Angered, the queen orders her huntsman to take Snow White into the forest, kill her, and bring back her heart in a jeweled box. The huntsman cannot bring himself to kill Snow White and reveals to her the queen's plot. He then urges her to flee into the woods and never return. Lost and frightened, Snow White is befriended by woodland animals who lead her to a cottage deep in the woods. Finding 7 small chairs in the cottage's dining room, Snow White assumes the cottage is the untidy home of 7 orphan children. With the animals' help, she proceeds to clean the place and cook a meal. Snow White soon learns that the cottage is the home of the 7 dwarves named Doc, Grumpy, Happy, Sleepy, Bashful, Sneezy, and Dopey, who work in a nearby mine. Returning home, they are alarmed to find their cottage clean and suspect they have an intruder who has invaded their home. Snow White introduces herself, and the dwarves welcome her after she offers to clean and cook for them. Snow White keeps house for the dwarves while they mine for jewels during the day, and at night they all sing, play music, and dance. Back at the castle, the magic mirror reveals that Snow White is still living, and with the dwarves enraged that the huntsman tricked her, the queen creates a poisoned apple that will put whoever eats it into a death-like sleep. She learns the curse can be broken by love's first kiss, but is certain Snow White will be buried alive before this can happen. Using a potion to disguise herself as an old hag, the queen goes to the cottage while the dwarfs are away. The animals see through the disguise but are unable to warn Snow White. They rush off to find the dwarves. The queen fools Snow White into biting into the apple, and she falls into a death-like slumber. The dwarves return with the animals as the queen leaves the cottage and give chase, trapping her on a cliff. She tries to roll a boulder onto them, but lightning strikes the cliff before she can do so, causing her to fall and get crushed to death by the boulder. In their cottage, the dwarves find Snow White asleep by the poison. Unwilling to bury her in the ground, they instead place her in a glass coffin in the forest. Together with the animals, they keep watch over her. A year later, the prince learns of Snow White's eternal sleep and visits her coffin. Saddened by her apparent death, he kisses her, which breaks the spell and awakens her. The dwarfs and animals all rejoice as the prince takes Snow White to his castle in the sky.
Apparently.
I'm just saying.
Apparently, they're ascending to heaven.
That's what it looks like. But anyway, trivia. At a recording session, Lucille Laverne, the voice of the Wicked Queen, was told by Walt Disney's animators that they needed an older, raspier version of the Queen's voice for the Old Witch. Laverne stepped out of the recording booth, returned a few minutes later, and gave a perfect old hag's voice that stunned the animators. When asked how she did it, she replied, "Oh, I just took my teeth out."
I love that. That's so perfect.
That's great. And
That's great.
That makes perfect sense.
It does.
How that works. Walt Disney wanted to keep Snow White's voice as a special one-time sound and held Adriana Castelletti, Snow White, to a very strict contract. Except for a tiny bit part in The Wizard of Oz, 1939, she never had a real singing part in a movie again, though she was a classically trained singer.
Wow.
Yeah.
She signed a really, really bad contract then.
Some animators were opposed to the name Dopey, claiming that it was too modern a word to use in a timeless fairy tale. I would point out today they would not want to use the word dopey because probably they would be considered like making fun of slow people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Walt Disney made the argument that William Shakespeare used the word in one of his plays. This managed to convince everyone, although any reference to the term dopey is yet to be found in any of Shakespeare's work. Although Shakespeare does use the term foolish in Twelfth Night, as well as Zed, or Z, meaning dumbest of the dumb, these could have been alternative names for dopey since they were found in Shakespeare. Halfwit, dunce, and jester were all similar terms that were commonly used at the time. They could have been Dopey's name also. The original names for the dwarves, however, before Disney had renamed them, were Snick, Glick, Blick, Flick, Plick, Wick, and Quee.
Yeah.
You got to be real careful how you say that, by the way.
Yes. Good job, by the way.
The very special Academy Award given to the picture consisted of one standard Oscar statuette with 7 miniature statuettes on a stepped base.
I love that. That was awesome.
Last but not least, and that's not that there weren't more trivia for this, because there's tons of trivia for this. I just cut it down to some of the more interesting ones. Animator Seamus Culhane recall drawing the dwarfs march home in the hi-ho scene as one of the toughest assignments of his career. Although 6 of the dwarves were marching at the same tempo, he had to give each his own body language suited to the character, and he had to map each individual's walk with a blue pencil and ruler because of the unusual angles and perspectives used in the sequence. And then there was Dopey.
Yes.
Bringing up the rear, hopping out of step in the with the others, but who still had to be smoothly integrated into the action. Describing the sheer amount of painstaking, hand-drawn labor this involved, Culhane said, "I worked 6 months on that beep thing, and it doesn't last a minute on screen."
A labor of love, apparently.
I just hope he got paid well.
They got paid pretty well for the 1930s.
So that's all I've got for the trivia.
All right.
What is your first like for this film?
Oh, first, like, obviously, it's an absolute legend of animation. Obviously, being the first, and it broke so many. It'd be like it got an Academy Award. It'd be like it broke like every record. The critics at the time were talking Disney's Folly, and this is going to be the worst thing ever. And like the critics coming up to this film were be like, no, this is going to be the worst thing ever. Be like, this is not going to work. There's no chance this is going to work. And when it debuted, they were like, oh my gosh, we're wrong. Oh my gosh, amazing. To where it was what I've seen in interviews where the people were laughing, they were crying, they were like every point was on, be like at every point needed to be like this film was created with such love and devotion to the craft, to the craft itself. And there again, as a very small boy, I didn't appreciate that. As an adult, I do now. But be like, yeah, it's an absolute legend in its own right. And those who would say that, well, be like, it's just old. I would have said that when I was much younger. But as an adult who now does reviews for a podcast, I find this absolutely amazing. So yeah, number one.
My first like for this, you'd think that it would be something along the lines of the amazingness of doing this much animation for this long, being the first animated movie, that sort of thing. The thing is, yes, it is an amazing achievement having an hour and a half worth of animation, but in all honesty, that's just what 8 or 9 Silly Symphonies or Looney Tunes cartoons in a row. It's just a year's worth. It's more than a year's worth of work, but it's a lot of work, but it's not like they weren't already doing kind of this work already.
Of course.
And they're probably working around the same pace, especially since we actually know there are fully animated deleted scenes for this film. But the thing I enjoyed the most is the fact that this really does feel like 8 or 9 Silly Symphonies in a row.
Kind of, yeah.
It has that feel of the classic shorts, like the Looney Tunes, or for instance, when we were doing Looney Virus, I put a short in there you had never seen, and I am still surprised I saw, because it was one of those happen to see ones. Called I Love to Sing, which was easily the oldest. Probably still is actually the oldest thing we've reviewed.
Oh,
okay. I think it predates. I think that short still predates this movie.
Okay.
I have to double check, but that Schlesinger, I think, was the director on that.
Yes.
That style is kind of what this is using, even though we're also throwing in there at least they had to have done like I know they did in later films where they filmed somebody and then drew to match that animation, so it would give a more natural animation, because you can it's because it's not piddle. What do you call that where you draw out on the film? Rotoscoping. It's not rotoscoped, because you can tell if it was rotoscoped a little better. This is definitely going off of a off of a film's reference film. It's basically a lot of the animation is through reference films, especially on the Snow White, Prince Charming, and the Queen. Not so much the witch, but the Queen. You can kind of tell that they are basing that. It's a more kind of it's less cartoony animation and more of a, we're obviously referencing other stuff kind of things. You know what I mean by that?
Yes.
I don't like that all the time because I think it does kind of give them some awkwardness in the animation, especially looking back on it now, especially when you're looking at stuff like, you know, the Seven Dwarfs who are fully animated without reference. I kind of wish I'm not considering this a downside, which is why I'm mentioning it here. I just kind of wish they'd stayed with the whole full animated, you know, the full cartoon look. I love the fact that this felt like those old classic cartoons, because the thing is, Pinocchio doesn't. Pinocchio feels like a step up from that. It's obviously got a little bit more money because it didn't have to fight, and the people who made Pinocchio had made this film, so they already had figured out, okay, yeah, these old ways of doing it that we were doing for the shorts, a lot of those best practices don't really translate as well to a movie, so they did different things for the movies going forward as they were continuing to learn and grow in their craft. But at this point, we were just seeing what felt like a long set of Looney Tunes cartoons in a way, but done in the Disney style, which is Silly Symphonies. And I kind of liked that it had that kind of, not amateurish, that's not the word I'm looking for, but kind of natural feel, I guess. A more natural. It's not as polished as later ones are, but it doesn't need the polish. And it's still beautiful all the way through. The animation in this is amazing, but especially for this time period. But at the same time, it still has the feel of like watching a bunch. I'm not gonna say like Bugs Bunny and Tweety, even though I watched more Looney Tunes than Silly Symphonies, because Disney never put the Silly Symphonies up on TV like Warner Brothers did with Looney Tunes. But it reminded me of that kind of time period in my life, of that feel, that mostly stationary with a little bit of animation feel, but still amazing how much you're actually seeing because there is money behind this. You know what I'm talking about? I just love that kind of Wild West, I guess, feel of animation in this, where it's like, we've been making these shorts. Now we're making a full feature, but we still only really know how to make shorts. So this is going to feel like a very long short. So yeah, that's my first like, is that it feels like a very long short, and I kind of like that.
My second like would be, I'm going to go with the dwarfs.
Okay.
The dwarfs are what make this film more interesting, bring more dynamic to the film. You have every character has their own, the way they talk, the way they move, like the amount of detail they put into just the characters' walk and how they hold themselves, like how they throw their pick, how it comes over their shoulder, every one of them is different. From Doc to
Dopey
to Dopey. Thank you. Like this, the way they animated this film, the way they animated especially the dwarves, is so well done, so well executed beyond belief. It is just incredible. So yeah, the dwarves and how their personalities, they're all different. It's not Louie, Dewey, and
Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently, I can't talk tonight. But
Dewey, Huey, and Louie are the ones that own the Yellow Van shipping company. DHL, Dewey, Huey, Louie.
Oh, hardy har har, hardy har har. But yeah, just the amount of detail they put into the dwarfs themselves as characters, and the amount of time, energy, and love they're putting more love into just making this craft and making it what it is today. And to think that was almost 100 years ago.
Yeah, nearly.
It's almost 100 years ago.
about 90 years ago.
It's about 90 years ago.
Anyway,
So yeah, dwarfs.
I'm gonna jump off that because I kind of like. This wasn't my next like, but
Yeah.
it is one of my likes. Yeah, the dwarves are like a highlight of this because, like you said, they each have a personality. You can tell who they all are from a distance.
Yes.
Even the two that are the two dwarves that are have the most similar designs, being Sleepy and Bashful.
Yes.
Even the way they walk when they're not, actually Sneezy, Sleepy, and Bashful all kind of have the same kind of visual appearance to them. But even when they're not showing off their, major personality quirk they're named after, they each have a different way of feeling. So you can tell from a distance, oh, that's Sleepy, that's Sneezy, that's Bashful. So yeah, you got that. Plus, like you said, they all have great animation. You can the thing is, what I really like, however, more specifically, is Grumpy.
Yes. Oh my gosh, love Grumpy.
Because Grumpy, for one thing, is the only one with sense.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but but outside of the fact that he gets a little conspiratorial at points,
A little
about what's going on, he's like, Grumpy, you're the only one who's actually thinking straight about who these people are. And yeah, he eventually comes around too, but yeah, he's always going to be Grumpy. That's just how he is.
Exactly.
But so I like how I don't know, I've kind of come around on the idea of liking Grumpy characters, because once you know they like you, you can't really you kind of know it's a genuine like.
That is true.
Because let's face it, Happy, he may like Snow White, but then later he could turn around and not like her for some unknown reason.
And
it wouldn't really be a change in character.
True.
In story. But I like Grumpy was one of my favorite characters in this. I think he's always been my favorite of the Seven Dwarfs personally. But I've seen Grumpy in other things. But yeah. The Seven Dwarfs are my second like, Grumpy being foremost among them. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
What's your third?
My third like would be, even though the evil witch has more of a very petty, more vengeance, because she has to be the most fairest, most beautiful of all.
Yeah.
The depth of evil and brutality, brutality, that's not a word. The depths in which this woman will go in order to retain her vanity on beauty is to kill her stepdaughter and have the huntsman cut her heart out
and put it in a box. We are talking a Disney film which the villain says, cut her heart out, put it in a box, and bring it back to me.
Yes. Oh my!
Wow.
Yeah. Talk about the. Oh my gosh! This is like. Jeez. I mean, like we've seen some throughout the course of the 5 years doing the Cellcast. Thank you again, for people who have watched this and support us. Thank you very much. Like, you see some really, really dastardly villains, but I think the evil witch in this movie is pretty far up there. The fact to be like, she's willing to do anything in order for her own vanity, including kill a young girl, have her heart cut out, and bring it to her.
Yeah,
that is levels of insanity and levels of depravity in order just for your own vanity. And be like, we don't even know. Be like, what happened to Snow White's father, or anything? Be like, what other terrible, despicable things this woman did in order to gain power and to retain her physical beauty for the time being.
Yeah,
it's kind of, it reminds me of Gothel in a way, but Gothel was manipulative and twisted as a person. Be like, she didn't be like, yeah, she tried to kill Flynn Rider, yes,
and Rapunzel, when it became very obvious she was never going to get Rapunzel was never going to like her again.
Yeah, it's true, but also she was going to force her to do whatever it was, because it was in her vanity, her pride to still be youthful, and it didn't matter what it was going to take. Where with the evil queen is literally, I'm going to kill my stepdaughter because she's more beautiful than I am, and I'm going to prove that, but I'm going to rip her heart out. And it's just like, jeez.
She's very jealous,
extremely jealous. So yeah, it's just the level of callousness that the evil queen will go to in order to retain the status of beautifulest of all, which is just like, you think of that, it's just like, whoa, that is low.
Yeah,
when it comes to like the extreme high bar when it comes to villains motive. And I just like, wow, be like, you start looking at that like in full perspective, it's like, dang. So that's my number 3.
So the problem
Pardon me.
The problem with our 3 like limit here is that this movie has a lot of likes, and we have to leave a lot of them on the table and not get to talk about them.
Right.
So I'm going to jump on what I consider to be my favorite sequence of this film.
Okay.
But bear in mind, there's a lot more things I like about this than what I really mentioned.
Gotcha.
That really deserve to be talked about, but we just don't have the time. But the transformation scene of the queen to witch,
oh yeah,
was amazing in its fluidity and its transformation, and it's like you literally see every single frame of the evil queen, the beauty that she had, because she was still a very beautiful woman from what we could see, to being this old, nasty, ugly witch that she will eventually die as. Because you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I don't know if she was ever a good person. That's not even the quote I was thinking of when I started that sentence.
Right.
No. It was Star Wars, but it was a different part of Star Wars, because she became that which she hated. She allowed her evilness to make her as ugly on the outside as she was on the inside.
Oh.
And she never got to go back because she literally lied, cheated, used black magic, and did every sort of evil she could to kill Snow White, and it was all for naught.
Exactly.
In fact, I am going to kind of play off of this a little, because one of the visual elements I like here is they went to so much trouble to make Snow White appear good, the perfect angel kind of a character, in 1937.
Yes.
She's the only character we see who actually prays. Interestingly enough, while she dies, it's her prince that brings her back.
Okay, fair.
That she did meet for like a hot second back at the well.
Classic fairy tale. And the end of the film, when they go on to live happily ever after, they go off to his castle. Interestingly enough, his castle does not appear to be on the ground. It's in the clouds. Homegirl, somehow Disney, I don't know how they pulled this off without realizing it, they made a Jesus analog resurrection story. I would agree with you,
because in so many ways, Prince Charming, despite the fact he doesn't get much character development in this at all. I didn't even bother to list his voice actor. That's how little he's in the film. But he's kind of the perfect character. He's just like Jesus.
Yeah,
looking for his bride.
Yep.
He finds his bride after she has quote unquote passed, and he brings her out of the grave.
Yeah.
And they go off to heaven. Good night. That sounds like what we're off. We're because as Christians, we're of the church. The church is the bride of Christ.
Right.
And one day, a lot of us are going to be risen from the grave
Yeah.
and taken off to live with Jesus. If we're the bride of Christ and he's the bridegroom, I'm sorry, I was nobody else seeing the similarity
That
here.
is a very,
And
very
I
good-
guarantee you the Disney people didn't see it. They were just if they saw it, they weren't, the few who probably saw it probably just didn't point it out.
probably.
I suspect that this was a thing that in the original fairy tale, and they were just adapting it far more closely than Disney will ever adapt another fairy tale after this.
Oh, yeah.
And they unintentionally put a Christian message in this film.
Bravo. That's really good. That's a way to draw
Right. And so that
out of
means the evil queen was Lucifer trying to kill the bride of Christ.
Yeah.
Or the bride of Prince Charming.
Well, she wasn't Lucifer the cat.
That
Lucifer.
comes later.
Yes, Lucifer.
I'm sorry. Do you have another name that you prefer for the devil?
Beelzebub.
She didn't look very Beelzebubish, but anyway.
Anyways.
Anywho. So yeah, all of that I just mentioned, because I just kind of combined a couple of my likes there.
I gotcha.
Is, you know, the animation plus the fact that they somehow unintentionally had a Christian visual in there. I suspect it was unintentional. And the fact that Disney, no one at Disney has ever thought, oh, we should go edit this. It's because they know they would, pardon the pun, they'd be crucified if they did.
Oh.
By the historians. Because let's face it, we already know Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is in the National Film Registry as is.
Yes.
They can't change it now.
Nope.
So anyway, that brings us to the end of our likes, I believe. But there has to be some stuff that we didn't like about this film.
Yes.
What is your first dislike?
My first dislike of this film, now I'm probably going to get raked over the curls for this, but
Hang on, let me find my rake.
yeah, I could not be like, granted, I understand this is the 1930s and music styles have changed dramatically, but how Snow White sings drives my ears nuts. Like her singing style is just very high, very, very high.
Are you saying you don't like Sopranos?
Not that squeak.
Squeaky Sopranos. I like this.
Sopranos.
I like this term. This was a very this is the only defense I have. It's not necessarily a time period thing, even though it kind of is.
Yeah.
This was a very much, musicals were not as big a thing.
Oh,
yet.
I agree with you. I agree.
And so more of this is more based off operatic style of singing. Because like I mentioned earlier, the voice actress is a classically trained singer.
Yes, I agree.
So she sings in a very classical style.
I agree.
And this is definitely not Sherman Brothers music.
I agree. I completely agree.
I get it. I get it. Trust me.
Yeah, it's just the octave in which she sings everything. I can't even do it because my voice is cracked right now.
I mean, that's why they made the joke in Shrek with Fiona.
Yeah, that is true.
Singing so high that it caused the
bird to blow up. I agree. So that's more of a nitpick of mine. Be like, she squeak sings.
Yeah.
It's almost too perfect. Let's say that. But yeah, that's nuance. That's my first dislike.
She is very close to having to sing in falsetto throughout the entire film.
Oh my gosh.
I will admit that. Honestly, the songs were not an issue for me as much because so many of these are classics.
Yeah.
I mean, Hi Ho, Whistle While You Work, Someday My Prince Will Come. These are they're classics.
Yes,
I can't be mad at them because I wouldn't want to hear them sung differently than this.
Agreed. Well, just wait until the live action whenever that comes out.
That one I may boycott. But anyway, because I can just see them giving it to somebody who really can't sing, trying to be Snow White.
Yeah.
And then them trying to make it work. Anyway, beside the point, that's next year.
Next year.
It's next year that they're making a live action Snow White. They're going to ruin it. That's the thing. I'm not convinced I'm gonna like the live action Little Mermaid movie coming up, mostly because I don't want them to mess with the original movie.
Fair.
It could still work. Don't get me wrong. I'm still gonna give it a shot. But the thing is, Disney of 1937 and Disney of 2024 is entirely different companies, and there's no way this is going to be have the same feel. Anyway,
my thought on
I'll get back to my dislike in a minute.
Yeah. So my thought is, ever since they did Maleficent, are they going to do more of the?
I mean,
this is the evil queen story.
They've also done Cinderella, so
right.
They at least know kind of how to do the fairy tale part itself.
Very true.
The question though is going to be, is it going to be the same type of film? I guess
agree.
Is what I'm trying to get at.
I agree.
Anyway, my actual first dislike for this film is there are moments throughout this where the stuff that was used reference footage for whatever reason that those characters. If you're gonna sneeze.
I'm trying, man. It hurts. Good.
The way the transfer happened, they kind of stick out. It's just the live action reference characters. It could be because they're a different animation style, so I'm noticing it more. But they appear to stick out in the animation far more than like the dwarves do, or any of the animals do. Or the huntsman, even though the huntsman had a little bit of that also.
Right.
It's just you're looking at it, and it's like there's one kind of there's one texture, like a canvas on the backgrounds and on like all the other characters, and then you get to like Snow White and all those, and it feels like these were put on top and almost like, I would almost think it looked like new celluloid on top of old footage, if that makes sense. It's not, because even this transfer that was done, I think, in the 90s. I read this is one of the first films that they digitally scanned it in, did a remat, or cleaned up all the footage, and then recorded it to celluloid, which is crazy to think that they had to do it that way. But for whatever reason, the way that in the transfer on Disney Plus, because that's where I watched it, it just made it look like those characters were like on a different plane of existence in a way, if that makes any sense. And so, that's something I really did not like about it. And like I said, it could be that the only reason I'm noticing it more on those characters than maybe on any of the others is because of the fact that they are animated differently than the other characters. But I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay.
It's one of those weird things. I'm not 100% sure what the issue is. It's just more noticeable on them than it is on the others.
Gotcha.
It's almost like the cells are cleaner in a way.
I gotcha.
But anyway, what's your second dislike?
My second dislike would be, if it was not for the dwarfs in this movie, this would be this would be a short.
It would very much be a short.
Because good night, because you have the prince who has no personality. There's nothing to the character whatsoever.
Yeah.
Except be like,
he's in 2 scenes.
He's in 2 scenes. That's it. And he sings the same song twice.
Yeah.
And there's really nothing to his character. Now, I guarantee whenever they do the live action, which everybody's rolling their eyes at this moment, be like, it's good. They're going to give him a lot of personality, or they might just make him flat. Who knows?
Oh, I bet they'll make him flatter, and they'll try to make Snow White be like a kick butt kind of woman.
Possibly.
I don't know. I could be guessing wrong.
We don't know. But I'm. Where was I? Yeah, just be like you have the prince who's completely flat. You have the obviously it's a very true to form adaptation from a Grimm Brothers fairy tale. and it's like, yeah, there really is no, like, you know, what we would consider romance with these two characters. It's more, oh my gosh, it's you know, true love at first sight, whatever. And now, granted, that's a very classic trope.
It's weird though, because I've always remembered, and possibly this is because this is how modern princess movies kind of use the phrase. I think of it as true love's kiss.
Right.
This movie said love's first kiss.
Yes, love's first kiss.
That's a different kiss.
Agreed. Yeah, yes, I completely agree with
it's
that.
like, what if her father got kissed her lovingly as a child because he loved her as his daughter? Is that not love's first kiss?
Yeah, agree.
So technically it's a weird loophole. It's a weird loophole that could be easily exploited.
Yes, agreed. But yes, it's just like if the trolls, the dwarves were not in this film, this would be another silly symphony.
Yeah, I agree with that actually.
Yeah,
because and that was one of the other things I read that I didn't end up getting in there, is that they actually intended the movie to focus more on the dwarves.
Mm-hmm.
They actually had a lot more material on the dwarves, and it was like in the last like couple months going into it, they decided they needed more of the Snow White story in there, since it was Snow White.
Yeah.
So they tried to get some more in there, and that's why some of those deleted scenes with the dwarves got cut.
Yes.
But you're right. It's like, if we didn't have the dwarves, this would be a very short film.
Yes, it would. What is your third dislike?
No, this is my second.
Oh, your second dislike.
My second dislike for this film. This story, like you were mentioning, if it weren't for the dwarves, this would be very short. This story is so paper thin.
Yes.
Granted, I have never read the original fairy tale. There may not be much more to it than this.
I have it on Audible. I still need to listen to it, though.
Okay. Like I said, there may not be much more to it than this. But at the same time, there's a part of me thinking, you could have put more into this story. Because literally it is, oh, she's working as a scullery maid. She can apparently talk to animals. That's the thing. I always assumed this was a major plot point for her, that she could talk to the animals, and like this was a thing because she was, you know, a princess, kind of a thing. Because I mean, we'll go on and we'll see Cinderella do the same thing with the mice in Cinderella.
Agreed.
But I thought there would be more to it than that, but really there isn't.
No.
More of the like I said, this is a very thin story. Granted, maybe it doesn't need more than this. It's just amazing they were able to get this made in the first place.
Yes. Because
the entire idea they were even, I remember reading in the past that part of what makes this, why they had such a hard time, this is such an experimental film, why people thought there was no way this was going to work.
Yeah.
And were, you know, bashing the idea of this movie before it ever came out, was the fact that they thought nobody would want to sit in a theater for an hour and a half to watch colorful pictures.
Pretty much.
And it's like, so I mean, it's amazing we got this in and of itself. It's just, I kind of wish there was more meat to this story. I mean, there is some interesting stuff there, but they never really go into it. And honestly, it's not even that I want more, you know, character growth or anything. I just want it to be believable that these characters could meet this fast and become fast enough friends that when Snow White stupidly talks to the old witch, who's obviously evil, and, you know, bites into the apple, which, by the way, I didn't get to mention this. I love how they showed the, how she, you know, bit into the apple and fell asleep. We didn't actually get to see anything, but that whole, the arm falling off and the apple going, it's like, good night. You want to say, oh, that they just didn't want to actually animate a woman, you know, looking like she's dying in front of kids, and maybe that's part of it. But honestly, the way they did it's like, that's almost scarier than if you'd have just shown her like clutching at her chest or anything or something. And especially with the witch saying, Her breath slows, her blood congeals. Good night. Saying her blood congeals is a scary sentence.
Exactly.
But the whole outside of these little cool moments, it just the actual story is paper thin in a way that I know Cinderella isn't, in a way that I know Sleeping Beauty isn't, in terms of the other classic princess movies. This is the most thin of the stories.
Oh yeah.
Heck, this is not a Disney princess film, though Kingdom Hearts would like to word on that, like says otherwise. But Alice in Wonderland is I feel has a deeper, a meatier story than Snow White does. So I just kind of wish there was a little bit more meat on that bone.
I agree with you on that. Yeah, I would definitely bounce off that with third. Be like, yeah, it's a very paper thin story, but there again, when you're dealing with a 15th, 16th century, fairy tale, really they were primarily known for telling like stories that were like warning children, don't do this, don't
right?
do this.
And I get that, but at the same time, they could have put more into it, I guess.
I agree
with an adaptation, because
I agree with you.
Anyway,
I would say Snow White is so. I mean, like it's she's the fairest. She is the most pure. That she's willing to take a chance on anybody, and the fact that everybody's telling her, do not talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Do not talk to anybody. And she winds up talking to the first person and falling for it. I'm like, it's like, okay, I understand it was the 1930s.
This character is very naive.
Extremely naive. I understand that because I'm kind of naive myself in some ways. I think we all are in some capacities. But it's like, yeah, when someone obviously like, eat this apple. Eat it. I promise, just eat the stupid apple. It's like, just like, take a hint, girl. This obviously this old beggar woman is trying to do something nefarious.
Exactly.
Oh no! But it looks so good. It's like, okay, Eve, eat the apple then.
Though someone did point something interesting out to me. From Snow White's point of view, the apple worked. Because she wished for her prince to come.
Yes, and he did.
He did, but from her point of view, she wished for the prince to come. She ate the apple. Next thing she knows, she's waking up and he's kissing her on the lips.
That's true.
And they were going right off to his castle. Yeah. From her point of view, it worked without a hitch.
Yeah. She woke up. It's like, oh.
Everybody else was kind of angry.
Yeah. Oh, the one of the things I do, I like kind of go into likes again, kind of just pairing back into it. It's the very the scene in which the dwarves are trying to chase down
the evil queen, the witch,
and it's just so well done. Oh my gosh, just amazing. But yeah, that is my kind of spur off into likes. Then this
right. So kind of working off of that is my last dislike.
Okay.
So as I said earlier, Snow White can talk to the animals.
Yes.
It's not really shown that anybody else can.
True.
At all. And so I get why the animals went off to find the dwarves, because they were her only allies that would be able to do anything in that moment. The dwarves, at least for the most part, act like they can't understand what the animals are saying. They're not trying to talk to the animals other than saying, shoo, go away, we got work to do. And yet, at some point, they all realize, oh, you're here because of Snow White. We must go save her because the evil queen is on the loose. How do you know this? It's a lot of conclusion jumping.
It is a lot.
To the point where eventually all seven dwarves are riding on the backs of the deer. Good night. I actually want someone to give me a decent drawing of 7 dwarves on 7 war deer. Stags.
That would be funny.
That would be a cool image. But I just thought of it.
Dopey's like trying to catch up on like a little fawn or something.
Dopey would actually be on Bambi, and Bambi would be mad.
It's like, get off me.
Or better yet, Bambi is on Flower. not baby. Dopey is on flour.
There we go.
That's what I meant to say. Anyway, it's just granted they're too far away to be able to get to help anyway.
Yeah.
But it's just like they make it back entirely too fast for people who have no way of knowing Snow White is actually in danger. Because for the most part, yes, the animals work with Snow White, but they don't appear to, and they are more anthropomorphized than most animals we see in animated films. But they almost appear to actually be able to understand what the animals are trying to tell them instead of, man, all these animals are acting crazy. I wonder what's going on.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Because there's none of the dwarves actually knew she talked to animals.
Yeah, no one did.
She never talks to animals in front of the dwarves. She never did.
No, she never did.
So how do the dwarves even know the animals know anything about Snow White?
Yeah. Oh, they must be here for Snow White. That's it. It's like, okay, you're making
that's an awfully large jump to conclusions. Granted, if you really are this jumpy about and worried about Snow White, maybe considering you people are richer beyond anyone else in the kingdom with all the jewels that you already have in your storeroom, maybe you should hang out with Snow White for a couple days, especially since after she eats this apple, you're going to be able to spend an entire year crying over her glass coffin. If you can do it then when you're that depressed, maybe you could have, I don't know, stayed around and took care of Snow White before she had a chance to speak some sense into her to not talk to the weird apple woman.
Very good points. Very good points.
Granted, this is a nitpick. This story has to happen this way. It's how it goes.
Right.
But and I would accept it far more if they didn't immediately turn back. I would have appreciated more if we saw it go down and then instead of them immediately coming back, like have the witch kind of show back up like an hour before the dwarves would get home. And like she has to run away as she's hearing the dwarves singing their coming home song, the hi ho, it's home from work we go. And that's when we see her, and they walk in, see Snow White in the shape she's in, and then they chase the queen.
Yeah.
That would have felt better to me than, oh, we just got to the mine. Oh no, Snow White's in trouble. How do we know? Well, these animals just showed up. Granted, magic. I get it. Part of this is the paper thin story. I get it. I just wish it made more sense.
Agreed.
Anyway, that's the end of my dislikes.
Okay.
We need to rate this thing, I think.
Yes.
Jacob, why don't you rate this film for us?
Fine.
I had to say something because we were just being silent and the audio people had no idea what's going on.
So I'm gonna give it a 9. Be like, it's one of those films where, like, if you're like an animation or just a movie nut in general, be like, you need to watch this film. Be like it's definitely not to more, quote unquote modern taste, but at this point I don't care. Be like, go watch the film. It's great, wonderful animation for its time period, for what it did for the industry. Heck, it created the industry. Be like, if it wasn't for Snow White, I think one person said, be like, we'd be living in a different time, a different era. If this movie had never been made, Walt Disney never tried to do it. Or just simply be like, oh, the people say it won't work. But this is Walt Disney. This man did everything he ever thought of. But yeah, go watch this film. It is great.
What number did you rate it?
9.
That's what I thought you said. I'm giving it an 8.5.
Say what?
It's not that it's bad.
No.
Don't get me wrong. It's a great film. But as great as it is, and a lot of this is me having, aged out of the demographic a little bit. As beautiful as this is not one I kind of want to return to anytime soon.
Fair.
I and I don't really hold any nostalgia for it, apparently, since I didn't remember watching it as a kid, as we found out earlier this episode.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's a good film. I enjoyed it. There's very little to actually complain about other than just the time, the fact that they had never done something like this before at this quality. So, and that leads to issues, obviously.
Yeah.
But for what it is, it's a great film. It's a great experiment. That's the thing you have to remember. This is technically an experimental film.
It is. Agreed.
And it was a successful experimental film.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some things it's like, yeah, you can tell what it's pulling from, what their experience is in. And I like that to some degree, but at the same time, it's like that also rides on me weird in other areas. So
fair.
Yeah, I'm giving it an 8.5.
All right.
Next week, we're staying in the Disney camp in a sense, but going one studio over to Pixar.
Luca.
Yes. Our second pandemic film.
Yes.
That but the first of the ones that first of the Pixar ones that we're actually doing a full review on that we reacted to.
Yeah. Seriously, Disney.
We didn't get Turning Red in theaters. We didn't get our first Pixar in theaters was Lightyear. That could have been left. It should have been Turning Red. Turning Red would have been a better return to form.
I agree.
Anyway, we're going to go into Luca. So Silencio, Bruno. So join us next time for that. In the meantime, we're going to listen to some bumpers, some intermissions, hear other people talk for a while. When we get back, we will talk about what we've been watching, some news, and some X-Men. And since this was a Disney film, we'll promote the great Disney lover of the Culture Box Network with Retro Rewind.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, Roy.
This podcast is a proud member of Culture Box. Whether you enjoy geeky reviews, comedy, or original fiction, you can open up the Culture Box and find something excellent for your soul. Point your web browser to culturebox.media.
This week, we suggest the Retro Rewind podcast. Every other week, join the Retro Rewind pod as they travel back 15 years or more along the entertainment space-time continuum in their mission to review movies and games, establishing what is still worth your time today and what isn't. Expect fun banter and travel insights from Francisco, Paul, the Master Interrupter Powers, and a rotating cast of guest hosts, all of which are out of time.
The Cellcast would like to thank the following patrons: Ashley and Francisco Ruiz, Book of Gaming, PaulJPowers.com, and Melanie Dubois.
To get your name on the show, plus uncut episodes, early access to the Cellcast, plus reviews and special art from Jacob, please donate to us on Patreon.
So, Jacob, I have a question for you, my friend.
Yes.
What have you been watching?
Oh, what have I been watching? So by the way, happy Easter for everybody.
Yes, happy Easter.
So I went over to Easter to my wonderful girlfriend's house and had Easter over there. And so we're sitting around and having our bellies full and just trying to relax. And someone says to me like, "Oh, we need to watch a movie." So I'm like, "Oh, okay." So it's like Hulu. That sounds great. So there was this documentary that I heard about and I wanted to watch, which is called here we go. Pretty Baby, Brooke Shields. It's on Hulu. It's a 2-part documentary, and it is the career of the world famous actress Brooke Shields. And it goes from her early childhood to, the woman she is today and the struggles she had to go through. And now, granted, I disagree with a few points they bring up, but overall it is a good documentary, and I would highly recommend it. Other than that, I have continued to watch Inuyasha on Netflix. and there might be a piece coming out some point because I'm just really getting inspired to do something Inuyasha based. And yeah, I'm continuing to watch that. They're continuing to build the cast, and I finally started to get back into Clone Wars. Yeah, I'm.
Where'd you leave off?
I'm in season 5, about
Okay.
middle of the road, about season 5.
So you probably stopped where I originally did.
Where's that?
Right after the oh shoot, what is his name? He was in Rogue One and played by
Not yet. I'm not there yet.
You're not to that one yet. Okay.
No, I'm not there yet.
I'm just gonna say right around that point is where it starts getting really good.
Oh, okay. That's what I keep hearing.
Are you watching it in just the episode order, or are you following the episodes chronologically? There's a little difference.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing. I'm watching it as the way Disney Plus has it ordered.
Okay. I'm just saying where Maul's story goes.
Yes.
At the end of that season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting.
I gotcha.
And if you are watching The Mandalorian and want to see some of the old Mandalorian history that a lot of times they keep referring to, go watch the Clone Wars and then Rebels, and then you'll understand everything about a certain character voiced by Katie Sackhoff.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
You know who I mean.
I think so. So I didn't really discover this, but it's a podcast. There again, I'm a true crime fan. I love learning more about why people do despicable things to other people. So Dateline NBC has a podcast. It's basically they release a episode of Dateline on audio. So there's points where they'll being referring to something, but we can't see it be doing the original source being visual. So the episode that I tuned into was the Lacey Peterson A New Turn. That was interesting. That was interesting. And another one would be The Casual Criminalist. This is another podcast I listen to very frequently. And they did a 3-hour deep dive into Jeffrey Dahmer. That was hard to listen to. Let's just
imagine it was
very hard to listen to. So yes, if you like true crime, those 2 podcasts you can plug into and listen and learn more about true crime. So that is all I've been listening to and watching.
So week before last,
yes,
a friend of mine added me to a community chat. Not really a community chat like on Facebook, where it's part of a Facebook group, but there's a chat that's based around that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This was just a chat group that was made up of a bunch of friends he was adding. That they were talking about Star Trek, because he's going all the way through Star Trek from the beginning because he's never watched Star Trek.
Really?
He's going through it chronologically. Except he's decided he's going to catch up with the new stuff so we can keep up with the new stuff. I get it, but still.
Fair.
And as quite natural with the popularity of Picard season 3 right now, among those who were most part caught up and watching the show, they wanted to talk about it on Thursdays. Which kind of started getting on me. It's like, you should catch up. Because I left off in the middle of season 2. And so I decided, okay, fine. I don't want to get too far behind anyways. So despite the fact at the time I decided to rewatch season 2 of Picard, of course, watch season 3, watch season 4 Discovery, watch the last half of Prodigy season 1, and then of course Strange New World season 1. Since all that's on my backlog.
Jeez, that's a lot to watch.
That's only like 10 episodes a season.
Okay.
So I mean, it's not bad.
Yeah.
I started through my catch up. And as of last night, I finished season 2 of Picard.
Okay.
I can tell you why I fell off, and that didn't change, but it felt better since I didn't have to think on it for 2 weeks like I was before, and that's why I got mad at it.
Right.
they include a whole thing about immigration.
Oh yeah, we talked about that.
We talked about that.
Yes, we did.
You understand why that annoyed me, that they are that on the nose about a topic.
Yeah.
So it still annoyed me when I rewatched it, but I was able to get past and actually get to where the good meat of the story they were telling was.
Yes.
And so despite the fact that there is a very anti-conservative bent to that season in parts, the story was actually very good. And actually by the end, I was very hooked on seeing where it was going.
Oh.
Especially since it did comment on the eventual fate of one of my favorite characters in Star Trek, who has been in it since the beginning of Next Generation.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
And then today, I watched the first 2 episodes of season 3 of Picard, because I might as well get caught up on what everyone's talking about before stuff gets spoiled.
Right.
Which some stuff has already gotten spoiled, unfortunately, but no, well. I'm going to geek out for a minute, if that's all right.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
There was a moment where they showed off who a character was that they had kind of been not really in the background, but only communicating through like a computer with a voice, so you couldn't tell who the character was.
Yeah.
And they actually show this character show up and go, he's back. It's like, it was one of those moments where I'm just sitting there going, you've seen me when we watched Lower Decks.
Yeah, that season.
That's kind of what I was doing. Because I was going, I can't even say it here because there are people who are probably listening to this who might be interested in watching Star Trek, and I don't want to spoil it for them, but I will just say it was a very honorable appearance.
Just tell me afterwards.
You watch Next Generation?
Yes.
Okay.
I watched a little bit of Generation.
You've seen the 4 movies.
Yes.
So you'll know who this character is. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, that story in just the 2 episodes I've seen has already been very interesting. It's a lot more interesting than season 2 was, even though I liked where season 2 went.
Oh.
I'm very much more on like, it really feels more like it's pulling from continuity.
I got you.
Instead of building, it's still building on top of continuity, because there's still sometimes they say, oh, it was that mission. It's like, yeah, we never saw that mission.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about it like I should know what it is, because y'all know what it is, but you just made this up for this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently Mama's still watching. I didn't realize this. Mama, you know who I'm talking about. Episode 2, a certain character who's been in 2 series and 4 movies, 5 movies actually, when he appeared as a character, but not the character himself, the character's uncle or great uncle who defended Kirk. Anyway, now you know who I'm talking about. Because you've seen Star Trek 6.
Yes, I've seen.
You know who defended Kirk at the show trial. We'll be talking later.
Yes, talk later.
Because I'm now seeing the look on your face. It's like, I think I know, but I don't know. But anyway, I'm enjoying that, is what I'm trying to get at.
Oh.
Of course, over Easter did visit my parents on Sunday. We did watch some more Perry Mason. That was fun. But that's pretty much what I've been watching in my catch up, because it's either watch Picard or watch Car Ranger. And while Car Ranger's been interesting, I've got a little bit more time on that, it looks like. So we'll see where that goes. Anyway, continuing on. I think that's about all I have been watching, with one exception that neither one of us have talked about yet. because we did do a reaction over the weekend.
We did actually.
The Super Mario Brothers movie, which I'm actually we haven't got to news yet.
No, we haven't.
I'm not going to rain on your parade if that's in there.
Yeah,
but yeah, we did watch Super Mario Brothers. That reaction is out. Still need to put your album art that you sent me after I hit post. So I still need to do that. But go listen to that episode. It was fun, and go watch that movie. I think we both can agree on that.
I gotcha.
Are you saying not to watch Super Mario Brothers movie?
No, I would agree. Go watch the movie.
Okay, just making sure.
Sorry, I get distracted by something. Go figure.
No. Okay. So yeah, that's what I've been watching. So Jacob, what do we have in the news?
The Cellcast News with your host Jacob Heron.
Why, thank you, Dealit. And going into news, speaking of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, has been shattering box office records this weekend.
Yes.
Or this past weekend. Domestically, it has been projected to bring over $204 million during its first 5 days of the opening. It is estimated to bring in $377.5 million worldwide that weekend, which making it the biggest animated movie opening of all time, beating Frozen at $258 million record in 2009. Way to go, Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, and Toad, and of course we cannot forget Bowser himself,
and his possibly Academy Award winning song.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I know I shared it with the Facebook groups.
Peaches, 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 peaches. I love you.
Oh my gosh, that is so hilarious. So hilarious. And people are like, what in the world?
Go watch the movie.
Go watch it. Go show this movie some love in theaters. Go watch it. So yes, going into the second bit of news, according to the Dateline, the second trailer for the highly anticipated film. It doesn't say what it is, but obviously I know exactly what it's talking about. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. For its first 24 hours, its second trailer pulled in astonishing 148.6 million views in the first 24 hours, and making it probably one of the highest viewed trailers to ever come out for a Marvel film, or even like a trailer period regarding a superhero flick. All right, so going back to a movie that I know both of us watched as kids, I think. Like, you watched Gremlins, right?
Gremlins?
Yes, you watched Gremlins, right?
Not till many years later.
Okay. Well, apparently Gremlins is coming back.
Why?
Because it's Gremlins.
It's Home Alone with puppets.
Oh, it's so much more than puppets. All right, so Escape to
Besides, it's always after midnight.
That is true.
Water. I'm just saying these are just,
or don't feed them.
These are just tribbles with faces that lose their fur, which is not something I want to say.
It's weird, but it's Gremlins. All right, so Escape to the world of magic and mythology when Gremlins: The Secret of the Mogwai premieres on Tuesday, May 23rd on Max, which formerly was
HBO Max.
HBO Max. For some reason, they changed that Max.
They're changing it because of the Discovery thing, and they're trying to make it more not HBO centric.
Oh, okay.
I think is the thought process.
Makes sense. The premiere date announced in the first teaser trailer with a highly anticipated animated family feature, animated adventure, was revealed today, a couple of days ago, exclusively during the Warner Bros. Discover unveiling of the rebranding of Max streaming service on the Warner Brothers lot in Los Angeles. So another one that I know that I'm excited about, you're excited about, obviously, Star Wars Celebration in London offered up a heaping bounty for fans on the hunt for exciting new animated content set in the Lucasfilm universe. Panels feature filmmakers for the upcoming film, the Bad Batch, Star Wars Vision Volume 2, Star Wars Clone Wars, and offering more updates. New trailers for the Visions Part 2 has been released. Let's see, Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures and orders for Star Wars Tales of the Jedi Season 2 and The Bad Batch Season 3 finale.
You know the bad part about the fact they're doing a Young Jedi Adventures is?
Mm-hmm.
Those have to be before Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
Because we all know what happened there.
Younglings get kind of...
Let's just say that's where the Young Jedi Adventures are going to end.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Just saying. And I did notice something else coming out from Max.
Oh.
Yeah, and it also kind of involves a character called Max. Going back to our childhood again.
Max Headroom?
No.
Not that I'd watched Max Headroom as a kid.
Something about Looney Tunes.
Oh,
Or
you mean
Tiny Toons.
They're tiny, they're toony, they're all a little loony. And in this cartoony, we're invading your TV.
Or in this case, it's a reboot called Tiny Toons Looniversity.
As long as they don't get political like Animaniacs did, I'm fine with it.
Oh, brother. That to me kind of worries me, but it's, you know, anyway.
Well, I mean, this is at least, I mean, it's going to be more of an in-house thing since that one was tied to Hulu before the Disney kind of took nearly complete control over it and all that stuff.
All right, so to quote HBO Max's Twitter, going back probably three days ago, your favorite tunes are back for more fun. Hashtag Tiny Toons Looniversity is coming soon to Max. Hashtag Stream on Max.
I need to find a copy of How I Spent My Summer Vacation because we need to review that.
We do.
Especially since Disney is involved in that one.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hampton and his family.
Yeah.
Along with Plucky, who invited himself along.
Of course.
They essentially are going to Disney World.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And they ride the monorail and then go home because they want to leave something for next time.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So yeah, that is all I have for info stuff. Unless you have something else.
Well, I wanted to I wanted to circle back a bit because did you mention what the worldwide total for Super Mario Brothers movie was?
No, because there again, this information is probably like 2 days old.
Okay, as of April 13th, 2023, the Super Mario Brothers movie has grossed $260.8 million in the US and Canada, and $248.4 million in other territories, for a worldwide total, this is the gross, not the net, of $509.2 million. Bear in mind, this film still hasn't released in Japan yet.
Yeah. And it's in the first week of a release?
Yes.
Yeah. That's insane.
It's amazing what happens when you just make a fun movie that people want to see and you're not trying to preach to them.
Yeah.
I know, amazing. And that's,
yeah,
you made a fun movie people wanted to see. You didn't subvert expectations.
Exactly.
I'm not saying I don't want any movie to ever subvert expectations. It just shouldn't be the norm. Otherwise, what are you subverting?
Exactly.
Anyway.
So my thought on Tiny Toon University, all I'm saying is Max, HBO Max, please, for the love of Jesus Christ, I plead with you, please do not pull a Daphne.
You mean a Velma?
A Velma, that's what I meant to say. Velma.
Or Daphne, for that matter, because I didn't like her in that either.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do this to the show, please. Because you already.
Oh, I like how you hate it so much you've already wiped the name of it from your mind.
I did. It's like, oh yeah, it's Daphne. No,
it's Velma.
It's Velma.
Because it's Mindy Kaling, and she thinks that's who she is Velma.
Yeah, no, no, that is not Velma. I am sorry. Yes,
you know that's getting a second season, right?
I know it's going to get
and it's
butchered.
Yeah, because the shock value's gone.
Yeah, it's going to go. Oh yeah, that season.
There's not even going to be hate watches.
No, it's going to be like, oh, it's on. Click.
Oh,
don't care.
Oh, second season of Velma's out. That can't be good. Oh look, Mandalorian's on. Grogu and Friends. We'll go watch that instead. Tiny Toons. That's even better. We don't even have to leave the streaming service for this.
There was me like, but wait, be like, this was a great show, wasn't it? It's like,
no, you didn't understand any of the characters
at all. Yeah, either or. Just don't pull a Velma, please.
Yeah, that's just one of those weird things that movie made. That TV show might have fared better.
Yeah.
If they just changed the name of the characters and didn't make it so obvious that they were the Mystery Inc. crew, but was basically the Mystery Inc. crew, that may have actually got some views because people are like, oh, this is interesting. These are obviously supposed to be these characters, but they're not those characters because this is more of an original story. Instead, they tried to say, oh yeah, these are these characters. Isn't this cool? Aren't we funny?
Yeah.
Aren't we funny?
No, you're not.
You're not funny. You're not funny at all. You don't even have the gall to thinly hide this behind parody. That's all it would have fared better if they'd actually made it a parody, not a in-universe mocking of it.
Yeah.
Because they weren't funny. Anyway,
it wasn't funny. It was funny like getting your teeth pulled.
Either way, we've bashed that show probably enough.
We have.
So we got some X-Men to talk about.
We do.
Previously on X-Men.
Meet the sulky, over-bulky, kinda hulky superhero. Hot to twisted and electrically transistored superhero. An exotically neurotic and aquatic superhero. The Marvel superheroes have arrived.
I'm just going to say before we continue this, we've been listening to that for what? 8 episodes, 9 episodes total now. I know for a fact the reason Namor is exotically erotic is a slight change in how words are used between the 1960s when that opening started and nowadays. But I still hear it go, kind of, because he is exotic and he is, for the most part, in most cases, just wearing a Speedo, basically. So it's kind of an erotic thing, but it's still very, I wish they'd use different words. That's all I'm trying to get at.
I agree.
Spider-Man and his amazing friends, Iceman and Firestar.
I know they say you can't hear pictures, but that shot of Magneto from the opening with he's holding his fist up and you see the red circles coming out of it. Mm-hmm. Give me a still shot of that. I'll always hear that bass on dong 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 before the song ends. I'm just sorry. That's just, I will hear that even though nothing's playing.
Yeah.
If I see that image.
Fair.
Sorry. Anyway, We're only reviewing one episode today, except Jacob watched 2.
I did by mistake. It happens.
And the reason is because the next 2 episodes are a 2-parter.
Yes.
In fact, I just looked at the list of the upcoming episodes. We have a lot of multi-parter episodes coming up.
Of course.
So today we're reviewing a very interesting episode, Mojovision, which first aired on February 5th, 1994, directed by Larry Houston and written by Brooks Wetchell. On a world ruled by television, an alien named Mojo is master. When he abducts the X-Men and forces them to be action heroes in his shows, he may have to deal with more than he bargained for when Mojo's original action hero sabotages him. Meanwhile, Xavier and Magneto are still slowly making their way through the Savage Land.
Oh my gosh.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yes, we will.
Guest cast for this, we've got Cynthia Bellevue as Spiral, Robert Boxsteele as Sauron and Dr. Carl Lycos, David Hemblin as Magneto.
I am Magneto, master of magnet.
John Neville as Major Domo, Peter Wildman as Mojo, and Rod Wilson as Longshot. Trivia for this episode. This is obviously the debut of Longshot, Mojo, Spiral, Shauna the She-Devil, and Sauron in the Savage Lands. This is not the same Sauron who lives in Mordor in a giant tower with a giant eye, who forged the One Ring to rule them all. You know.
Yeah.
3 rings for the elven kings under the sky, 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone, 9 rings for the race of men doomed to die, 1 ring for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 1 ring to rule them all, 1 ring to find them, 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. No, this is not him. It's the Pterodactyl Man. I
was wondering where you were going.
I loved that I actually said the entire poem from memory. Thank you.
Nerd points.
Also, I forgot to mention the Major Domo debuts here also. Cameos.
Yes.
We have Psylocke and Super Adaptoid, which was the all-green guy punching a wall during the Longshot promo video.
Oh.
We have a cameo from Dazzler as one of Longshot's makeup artists. In the comics, she was at one time a love interest of his. And we also get a Skrull and Awesome Android are seen in the crowd at Mojo World. The clerk in the electronics store has a name badge with Calamari on it. Joseph Calamari was an executive producer on the series.
Really?
Yes. When the X-Men are sent to Mojo World, in the crowd, there are several creatures with human-like faces. Comics writer Scott Lobel looks like the werewolf creature. The blue and gray armored aliens look like artist Mark Silvestri, and the big-eared guy looks like editor Tom DeFalco. Jack Kirby is also in the crowd, as he was the original artist for the X-Men starting in 1963.
Sure. King Kirby.
Yes. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on this episode?
I was laughing.
This is a goofy episode.
Oh, my gosh. I was laughing my butt off because I remember watching this as a kid, and it's like, okay, this is funny. As an adult, it's hilarious.
Yeah. And it comes right to smack out of nowhere.
Exactly. Oh, Mojo. It's like, oh my gosh, what's going on?
Because you get the main opening, and then it's like, oh, look, here's another opening for another show.
Yeah. It's like, what the fudge?
Like, what? And it's like, oh, I know. Let's get the X-Men. You know, like those space aliens try to get the Looney Tunes in Space Jam. It's the same plot.
It's the same plot.
The same stinking plot. And they even then goes, oh, now we're just going to show the opening a third time with the opening sequence. Great, I like the opening song. But you see the opening sequence again while they're talking over. Says, we could get the X-Men. They do all these great adventures.
It's like they're watching a television show.
It's like, oh my words, you people have seen Deadpool from the future, haven't you? And you've decided to break the fourth wall without breaking the fourth wall.
Oh my gosh.
And so we get like 3 television shows made with the X-Men.
Yes.
You get, was it Mutants in Miami? Was the one with Storm and Cyclops? I don't remember what the second one was, but the one with Wolverine and Jean Grey was I Dream of Jean. It's like, I know what you're referencing, and I don't care. I can't remember what the second one was, other than it was Beast and Rogue.
Rogue Star.
Rogue Star. And I love how they actually had credits. Hit Dr. Hank McCoy as the Beast, Rogue as Rogue. All the kids will cut off their left hand to get a pair of Rogue's gloves. That's what he said. It's like, I know what you mean, but
oh my gosh.
They had to have been, the people writing this episode must have said, can we just sit in on one of your Haim Saban, because Saban made the same people who did Power Rangers, but I was like, can we sit in on one of your meetings and just make fun of y'all for an episode of X-Men? Sure, go right ahead. Makes you wonder who's who. Who's mocking you. I know Mojo is actually a character from the comics.
Yes, he is.
But I suspect that this version is a lot more exaggerated.
Maybe. Oh my gosh, but Peter Wildman's performance as Mojo is absolutely he is like he reminds me of another voice actor, but I just like a Wildcat Goldfriend or whatever they
Bobcat Wolf. No.
Bobcat.
I know who you're talking about.
Yes. I'm drawing a blank, be like
Wait or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. But he sounded like that comedian. But that's what I kept thinking. It was like, oh, it's this guy. He was on Hercules.
Yeah, Bobcat Goldthwait.
Yeah,
Bobcat was his nickname, obviously not his real name.
Yes, but I mean, like, it's like, oh my gosh, what is going to come out of this character's mouth again? And it's just absolutely hysterical. Definitely how they team up the X-Men in every one of them, which is hysterical. Yes. And then it's just like they all lose, and then Longshot just decimates the programming. Well, Jean interferes and Longshot dismantles it.
But strangely, the craziest thing in this entire episode is how the person in the control room transports characters between dimensions. She goes in and does a ballet dance, and somehow that transports people.
Yes.
It's like, what are you doing? And why is this working? Because I forgot about it at the end. It's like what? I saw her doing this weird dance going, what? Oh, yeah, that's what she does.
Yeah.
This looks weird, especially since she has 6 arms.
Uh-huh.
She'd make a person from Mortal Kombat very happy.
Yes.
Also, she doesn't really care what's going on.
Yeah, then be like, kind of to wrap this episode up in a nice little, goofy bun.
Yeah.
It's more the X-Men get away, Longshot, destroys everything, in a way.
I liked what Longshot said as to why he was making a mess. It's like, I'm going to take out the X-Men so I can have their time slot back.
Oh, yeah. Just perfect. And so Longshot does what he does. And, of course, Mojo's be like, oh, baby, sweetie, honey, whatever. And just like trying to butter him up, be like, yeah, we'll get you a new show and blah, 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 blah. And then the weirdest transition ever I've seen in this show yet. It's where they're talking about like, oh, here's another show. It goes right into the Savage Land.
They said, oh, look, are we watching the Jungle Channel? And it's like, now we're at I am convinced at this point that the Magneto Xavier story throughout this whole thing, they animated a whole episode of this, decided it wouldn't work as an episode, but still had to explain what Magneto and Xavier are doing all season, and just spread that episode all the way out through the season.
Uh-huh.
Because it never fits what's going on in an episode.
Yes.
And here, it's like they had to find a stupid joke to make it go.
Yes.
It's like, oh, we're watching the Jungle Channel. And it's like, so Xavier, so Magneto, that was your castle when you were here. I go, did we miss something? You have fought, you keep getting captured in every single one of these segments, Xavier Magneto, and always, and the next time you show up, you're sneaking through the forest again like you just got out of whatever it was. Like, Okay, and now you're being chased by Pterodactyl Man, Sauron. It's like, I really hope this. I'm assuming this must be get tied up in Reunion.
Probably.
With a name like Reunion, it kind of feels like it must.
It does.
But it's like, so far this has been like the weirdest segments because they're always like a 2-minute segment in the middle of this other story that has nothing to do with Magneto or Xavier. But anyway,
Yes.
thanks a lot, Morph.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway,
Wait until the next episode.
yeah, so we've already kind of mentioned it, but our next episodes of X-Men that we're covering is the season 2 finale. Look at the right ones. Reunion parts 1 and 2. So join us for that. And that's the last of the short seasons.
Uh-huh.
Because season 3 is long. It's 19 episodes.
Jeez.
Oh, great. And we get to go back to the Savage Land. Joy. Oh, look, there's Longshot. Now that I'm recognizing character names, I'm looking back through these episode titles and going, oh, this is all happening. Great. I think there's a Mojo Christmas back in here too.
Oh my gosh. I can imagine.
I'm looking for it. I know I remember seeing a Christmas episode like near the end. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It wasn't Mojo. It was Morlock. Have yourself a Morlock little Christmas in season 4. In the middle of bad movie month is when that's going to line up.
Oh my god.
Anyway, I think that's going to be it for us. So join us next. We kind of told y'all what's coming up. Join us next week for that.
Mm-hmm.
You got anything to add before we finish this up for the evening?
No. This has been a fun little episode to get into, and I know I've already watched part 1 of Reunion, but yeah, this was fun.
I'm sorry, but every time I hear Reunion, I think back to Final Fantasy VII Advent Children Complete, when he says, "My reunion, I bet you're dying to watch." Bum 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 bum. Bam, 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 bam. Good to see you, Cloud. A lot of people have no idea what we're talking about. In the meantime, this has been Drew.
This is Jacob,
and we'll catch you in the next frame.
You can follow Jacob on his Facebook at Jacob B. Heron. His Facebook page, Jacob's Daily Art Corner, where he tries to draw each and every day. His Instagram at Jacob B. Heron. His Twitter at Jacob Heron. And his Letterboxd at Jacob Heron. You can find Drew on Facebook at Drew Dodgen. His Facebook page, Drew's Photo Bin, to see his photography. His Letterboxd page at GGeorge759. His Twitter at GGeorge759. And Instagram at Drew Dodgen. You can like us on Facebook at the Cellcast Podcast, on Twitch at the Cellcast Gaming, on YouTube at Cellcast, on Twitter at cast_cell. The Cellcast can be found at Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or anywhere else fine podcasts are downloaded from. Please rate and review us where you found us, and also on Podchaser. Email us at thecellcastpodcast@gmail.com. The Cellcast is a proud member of both the Pop Americana and Culture Box media networks. For more information, please see the link in the description. Our theme song is Drop and Roll by Silent Partner. And remember, that's Cell with a single L.
Jiminy Crickets.
Oh boy.